John Fredericks, America's Godzilla of Truth. He's popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now J. Fred's picking sports. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network, John, Jack, and Nate, three guys that are pretty wise when it comes to picking winners. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, UFC battles, you name it. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins is your guide to picking winners. Before you make that play, hear what J. Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
That's right, episode 40 of the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show on this lovely Saturday morning in Tunica, Mississippi on May 13th, 2023. I'm your co-host, Jack Fredericks, editor of GodzillaWins.com, alongside my father, the Godzilla of Truth, John Fredericks, and of course, the degenerate we all know and love, Nate Perry. We are with today our esteemed panel of perfect sports predictors from the Godzilla Wins universe. Our fight guy and senior South Florida Lifestyles editor, Patrick Asselone, is here with us. America's Sheriff David Clark will be joining us later, as well as senior baseball and NHL contributor Dan Angel. We have a terrific show for you kind folks today. For the first 30 minutes, we're talking UFC Fight Night in Charlotte. Super excited about that. Going to be a good one. Then we're talking Bob Huggins, NHL playoffs, the NBA's ridiculous playoffs, which have shaken out in a really interesting way. We'll talk about that. And then we'll close with some rapid-fire MLB picks. The Godzilla, John Fredericks, is on fire. 5-0 last night in the MLB. 10 straight wins. We're giving them out all for free right here at the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show. So, welcome, Nate. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you.
Morning, guys.
Morning. Okay, so we're going to start here with UFC Fight Night in Charlotte. This is coming off the heels of UFC 288, big pay-per-view. Usually after that happens with the UFC, for all of those who may be just casual fans, is they do smaller promotions. This one in Charlotte. A lot of times they're in Vegas, so it's kind of interesting on the East Coast. A lot of fun there. We're going to start, as always, with a segment that I really love, which is where we talk about an undercard fight that we are excited about, either from a betting perspective or from a fight perspective, or for both. So, Patrick, I'm going to start with you here. What is one of the undercard fights you're looking at for UFC Fight Night?
Matt Brown, Court McGee. What I also want to say here is this is the fight night of inconsistency. You're going to see a bunch of guys on this card who are very up and down. 4 wins, 3 losses, last 7 fights, 3-4. And you're right, this is a smaller show. And I think what
recording in progress.
I think what they're trying to do here, and what they do in these smaller shows, for those that may not know, is to try to bring contenders up, to put them on the bigger shows later on. But again, they also need content. So what are you doing? You're putting some exciting guys on. I think Matt Brown, Court McGee will be an exciting fight. Matt Brown, great stand-up, excellent striker, really, really good clinch game, meaning elbows and knees, which is a lot different from your basic punch and kick sort of striking complement. They're really 2 separate things, but he weaves them together very, very well, uses his punch to get into a clinch to elbows, elbows to knees, pushes out, kicks, and he uses his stand-up to set up his takedown game. He's got a pretty nasty ground and pound game. So I really like him standing up. Court McGee is a really tough guy, a fantastic backstory. Kid had a horrible drug abuse problem, was an addict for years, turned his life around, started fighting, won the Tough Enough championship. I'm going to tell you people something that you may not really be able to understand. That's a 180 if there's ever a 180. You're going from absolute hopelessness and addiction to being a guy who wins a $100,000 contract on national television. That's why fighting is the best sport on the planet, in my opinion, because it's up to you what you do. You don't have to worry about anybody else. You bring it, it's all on you.
Who are you picking in the fight?
I'm going to go Brown. And the reason I'm going to go Matt Brown is they both like to stand up. I think Court McGee is not nearly as strong standing up. I think Matt's power is going to be a little bit too much. And he also hits with intent, where you can look at Court McGee and he doesn't really step into stuff. It's not really as aggressive standing up. I just really love aggressive stand-up fighters who have really good balance standing up. So I'm going to go with Matt Brown.
That's a great pick because Matt Brown is a plus 190 underdog. So if you like Brown in this fight, if you're listening out there and you like Patrick's analysis, you can go ahead and go to DraftKings, sign up using the promo code Godzilla, get you $150 on a $5 bet, and you can hammer that money line at plus 190. A lot of plus money there. Sometimes difficult to find the underdog plus money in the UFC undercard because a lot of times you get a lot of chalky favorites. I'm looking at some others here that are really chalky, and a lot of times they shake out that way. As Patrick said, UFC fight nights are not like pay-per-views. They can be a little inconsistent in the way that they're scheduled. Some of the fights can be really interesting. Some of them can end in 15 seconds, although that can be really interesting too. So if you like Matt Brown there, you get a lot of plus money. Nate, a couple minutes here from a betting perspective.
Sir.
What's an undercard fight you like?
So from an undercard perspective, and these are always fun, and these weird fights are always fun because you have to do so much weird research. And I've been staring really hard at this Jeon Kim Mandy Bohm fight for women's flyweight bout. Neither of them have been good in the UFC. Kim is 3-6. Bohm is 0-2. Both of them are probably fighting on some level to keep their contract. And neither of them knock anyone out, but they just throw punches. Neither of them do anything else. They just stand there and just throw punches, take punches, and it's served neither of them particularly well in their UFC career. Now they get to fight each other with basically the same style. So I've been looking at ways to bet it, and it's like you can't bet over 2.5 rounds because that's minus 375 because neither of them ever knock anyone out. Jeon Kim has one knockout in her UFC career, which was a KO with body punches. Mandy Bohm's got a decision in both of her losses. Neither of them have been knocked out, so you can't go over 2.5 minus 375. That's too much. Jeon Kim minus 230 feels like too much, but Jeon Kim by decision is minus 125. So just from a betting perspective, that feels like a pretty strong angle considering that this fight almost certainly goes to a decision. And Jeon Kim's been a little bit unlucky with some of her decisions lately. Mandy Bohm, not so much. She's just gotten dominated in both of hers. So I'm willing to take Jeon Kim minus 125 for a decision win.
Patrick, you do a lot of research. Do you have any interest in the Kim Bohm fight?
The only thing that I'm going to agree upon, which first of all, I agree with Nate on everything, and I love throwing things to Nate. Nate, while I'm talking about that fight, can you check out what the odds are for it to go to decision with Brown and Walker?
Absolutely.
Or excuse me, with Matt Brown and Court McGee. Excuse me. I think Nate has got it spot on. They're fighting for their contracts, and everybody needs to understand out there. Just because you're in the UFC doesn't mean you're a good fighter. You got to understand this. Just because you're a professional fighter doesn't mean you're a really good fighter or a dangerous fighter. It means you've gotten to a certain level, and God bless them all for that because they're getting paid for what they love to do, but you're getting paid. That's what makes you a professional fighter. Just like in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there's black belts who are terrible. Relative, because let's say you get a really athletic, nasty kid who picks it up at purple belt and destroys everybody. Well, how could a black belt lose? It's entirely up to the person, and everyone is not John Jones that can just walk in 30 pounds overweight and destroy people. It doesn't work that way. But I completely agree with Nate. I think these two are going to stand in front of each other. They're going to take probably several fights off their careers and a couple of years off their lives, just beating each other to death. And honestly, I don't think either one would be around much longer after that fight.
Perfect. So we were talking about the Matt Brown, Court McGee fight, just a deep dive for a little bit more for analysis. And we were looking at By decision. If you want to take Matt Brown by decision, that's plus 600. If you want to take Court McGee by decision, it makes his odds a little bit more enticing. Instead of being a minus 225 favorite, he's down to plus 110 if you want to take him just by decision. And if you want to just bet this fight to go the distance, probably the safest way to do it is over 2.5 rounds at minus 155.
I would say over 2.5 at 155 because I think Court McGee is not going to quit, period. And then I'm not saying that Matt Brown is just going to run him over. It's not what I'm saying. It'll be a very competitive fight. It'll be fun to watch, just based on styles and just the intent standing up. That's why I pick Matt Brown.
Pretty juicy pretty juicy bet there, but plus 600 from Matt Brown by decision. That's pretty fun. 6-1. Mark that down, John.
Listen, I bet one UFC fight you gave me, I think 2 weeks ago, and I won that. It's the only one I've ever done. I forget who it was, but I won the bet. Then I promptly lost it on the Kentucky Derby, the extra money I had in there. So, but yeah.
Did you lose that on the over under on how many horses actually were able to show up for the race?
Yeah.
Listen, guys. I mean, this show has been so hot, and it's about picking at winners and giving analysis. And you guys have been doing a really good job at that. I mean, I think this boxing segment, I learned a tremendous amount every Saturday. I don't really follow it. I don't know anything about it, but I look forward to it, and I learn a lot. And Patrick, your analysis really is because you've been there and everything. It's absolutely fascinating. Because until you've done something, or let me rephrase this: when you've done something, and you've done it yourself, then there's a whole different perspective because you have a very different point of analysis. I think so. The other thing I just got to mention before we get rolling into the show, I don't want to embarrass my son Jack, but I have to congratulate him. So you guys know that Jack yesterday won Teacher of the Year at his high school. Let's give him a big hand for that. Teacher of the Year at his high school in the Delta.
Please do not say the high school or I'm from. Thank you.
I said the Delta.
Fine.
No doxing.
Yeah,
Delta.
That's fine. That's fine. I didn't know where you're going to go with it. You've doxed me before, and I'd rather you didn't do it on the show. But yeah, thank you. Yeah,
congratulations.
Thank you for that. So, Dad has learned a lot about the UFC. Not enough to stop calling it boxing. It's mixed martial arts, not boxing. They do boxing, but he has learned some other stuff. And our picks are extremely hot, just like Beard Vet Coffee. Dad, why don't you tell us a little bit about Beard Vet Coffee, and then we'll move on.
Listen, I had to bail out of the first couple of minutes of the show, the opening, because I had to get my Beard Vet coffee, got my Beard Vet mug. And look, I drink 8 to 10 cups of coffee a day. Everybody knows that. I like it piping hot. I don't put anything in it. I like it straight. And so this is great coffee. And all you have to do is go to beardvet.com, beardvet.com. Sean George, who's been on our panel several times, he's behind it. Him and Kenny Lee, they're veterans. If you're a veteran, you want to drink Beard Vet coffee because a portion of everything they make goes to veteran causes. This is part of the Patriot economy, if you want to back that. But here's the bottom line. Get the dark roast because it's fantastic coffee. You drink this 3 cups of it, you're done with the other stuff. You can't go to Starbucks. You can't get the Folgers. It's just horrible. And it's strong, it's bold, it's smooth. Beard Vet. Go to beardvet.com, beardvet.com, and it's reasonably priced. Beardvet.com. It's good stuff.
Incredible coffee. So let's go now to the next fight, which is going to be Walker versus Smith. We were going to talk about Dern versus Hill, but it was scratched from the card. So we'll talk Walker versus Smith here. Patrick, we'll start with you. We were talking before the show. This is like a really interesting, exciting fight. So I'm glad we get to talk about it. Why don't you set us up and give us your analysis?
Anthony Smith was the new shiny thing for years. He beat a lot of really good people. He is a straight-up fighter. The guy walks right into you and throws bombs. Has no problem mixing it up anywhere. Big problem that I find with him, though, he's got great knockout power. The only problem is he drops his hands after throwing punches, which against this guy that he's fighting, Johnny Walker, may not be a great idea. Now, when I was saying he was the new shiny thing years ago, Anthony Smith was walking through people, and he was walking through legends. I believe he beat Rashad Evans and Mauricio Hua 2 fights in a row, 2 guys that were former light heavyweight world champions. Beat him up. Everybody thought that this was going to be the huge challenge for John Jones. It really wasn't. And unfortunately, I feel Anthony Smith felt the John Jones effect like everybody else does after they fight him. They sort of lose their way, get a little bit erratic. After the John Jones fight, he's had 7 fights. He's 4-3 after that fight. What do I think about Anthony Smith? I think he's a really tough guy. He's going to walk straight in. He's going to throw hands really, really hard. Johnny Walker, the guy should be an acrobat. He's phenomenally athletic, 6'6". He can do backflips, cartwheels, all kinds of crazy stuff, kick-ups. He's got a very, very flashy stand-up game, can hit you from anywhere. I'm just not crazy about his decision-making. I've seen him several times celebrating after fights. One time he actually blew his shoulder out celebrating after a win. And I got to tell you something that sort of kind of transfers over to me in the decision-making process for everything else you do. Because if you're doing that right after a fight, you're probably doing it all the time. So I'm not crazy about the decision-making process. I think, though, if Anthony Smith just keeps marching straight in, I don't know if he can take that many blows before he goes down, because he's very predictable in what he does.
Talk a little bit more about this John Jones effect. I mean, is it a confidence thing where you fight someone who's just so much better than everybody else that you start to second guess all of your decisions in the octagon? Or is it just getting pummeled and then not being able to sort of recreate the magic that you once had?
Well, I think it's a combination of both, because by the time you get to John Jones, you've pretty much beat up everybody in the division. So you've essentially, for all intents and purposes, cleaned the division out. So you're the de facto champion except for John Jones. Then you get into John Jones, and no matter what you do, he just dismantles you. You know, he did the same thing to Daniel Cormier. Has he been pushed? Yeah, he's been pushed. Gustafson's pushed him. Everybody's pushed him. But no matter what anybody does, you can't beat him. And it has an effect on people, especially when you're in there with a guy who is almost not taking it seriously, and he beats you. It's really crushing psychologically. And I think he has that effect on everyone he fights.
I'd be interested to see how Cyril Gane rebounds, because that was supposed to be a fight where Gane could win, and I mean it was another one, just an absolute beating. So that's interesting. Nate, from a betting perspective or from a fight perspective, either one, your analysis is always good. What do you like in the Smith versus Walker co-main event?
Well, from a betting perspective, it feels like someone's pulled the pin on a hand grenade and you're just not sure where it's going to go off and explode and who's going to get hurt. I mean, we're looking at an over-under set at 1.5 rounds. It's juiced pretty heavily towards the under at -140. And as far as picking it goes, it's basically a coin flip. Anthony Smith is a slight dog at -105. Walker's -115, but it's pretty close. From a betting perspective, my inclination on sort of what is probably going to be a fairly unpredictable fight with probably a fairly high level of randomness being who lands the punch that puts somebody down. That's what this feels like. That's what sort of Patrick's analysis sort of felt like. I don't know how many of these punches either guy is going to eat before somebody goes down. So from that perspective, my inclination would probably be to take Anthony Smith. I don't love it, but I think I'd rather not lay more juice than I have to on 2 guys that look pretty evenly matched, both with a ton of knockout power, both who are looking to just get in there and mix it up. It looks like Smith is probably going to have to close the distance, so he doesn't just get leg kicked to death by Walker. So if that's the case, these guys are going to be throwing. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking the under 1.5, but I think I'd rather just, tread lightly on this fight and maybe just Anthony Smith -105 and just, cut your losses in case it gets squirrely weird fast.
Patrick, why is the odds juiced so heavily on the under here?
Well, because they're both, just as Nate said, they both have knockout power. Don't be surprised if it's a flash knockout. And they come from completely different angles. Smith is a straight puncher. I love straight punchers. And as I've said before, it's really difficult for people to understand how hard it is to actually throw straight, consistent punches. And when you do, it may not look like there's a whole lot of power behind them, but your entire body's behind it. Johnny Walker, this guy could throw a hooking head kick out of freaking nowhere, a cartwheel, or do something and flash knock out somebody. So I think that's why they're both going to be going for it. There's not a real history of either one of these guys being submission, masters. So,
and they're not really like defensive wizards either.
Yeah, exactly. I love Nate. When you have two guys who just, it's sort of an understanding before the fight, we're just going to go to the center and bang. It usually doesn't last very long.
No, it doesn't. And I think it is probably the most intriguing of the main card fights here. So I'm glad that we had the opportunity to talk about it. Let's get to your picks. I don't know if either of you picked for this, then we'll move on.
I like Anthony Smith minus the 105. This is mostly just a risk aversion thing. I'm not laying any more juice than I have to on somebody.
Yeah. Patrick?
I generally don't do this. I'm going to go against Nate just because Johnny Walker's a lot more flashy, and he may just make a really bad decision and do something stupid, and it pays off.
I've seen that happen. Yeah.
Oh, we'd love to bet on that on this show.
Yeah.
The story of my life.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's move to our main event now, which is extremely heavy chalk. We've got Rosenstrike. I won't attempt to say his first name, even though I did look up how. And Almeida. This is a main event in the heavyweight class. The heavyweight division is a little rudderless right now because they're trying to figure out how it shakes out now that John Jones is on the top. And both of these fighters have a really interesting history. Almeida specifically, who I believe is 18-2 in his career and had a lot of difficulty finding fights in the light heavyweight division. Nobody wants to fight him. So he moved up. Rosenstrike has also had kind of an interesting career, a lot more fights under his belt. He's like 36-15 or something. That's off the top of my head, so I'm sorry if I got that incorrect. Patrick, we'll start with you. What do you see here? I mean, does Almeida just dominate?
I don't, it depends. Rosenstrike has got an awful lot of experience knocking out big names and big guys. He moves very well for a big guy. He's got a lot of experience. But it all comes down to situational awareness and matchups. And I had said this years ago to somebody. A friend of mine, an acquaintance of mine, was getting ready to fight for the UFC welterweight world championship. He had just lost it. And I said, if you really want to win this fight, punch him in the face. And of course, people think, well, kind of advice is that? Well, the person who had beaten him earlier, over a couple of fights, did some stand-up training and fashioned himself a striker, and he really wasn't. And instead of going to what really worked for him, he tried to stand up, he got beat up, he got taken down, he got punched in the face, and he lost. You dance with the girl that brought you. So I've been seeing inklings of Almeida maybe thinking he's a stand-up guy, stand-up fighter, striker, when he's a whole hell of a lot better ground fighter. If he wants to stand up and try to prove his worth, I think that's really, really stupid. Rosenstrike can hurt you quickly, and he moves really well. He's very elusive for a bigger guy standing up and striking. If Almeida takes it to the ground and just grinds it out, I think he'll take Rosenstrike. If you go with what you do well and not experiment, I think it works out well for him. I also think that when you're as large as Almeida is for a light heavyweight, you're a big guy. The athleticism really kicks in against heavyweights, and it's not nearly as a crazy disadvantage as you would have in some of the smaller weight classes where you just have monsters that drop down to the weight class below them and they're twice their size. So I like it as if Rosenstrike stands up, I think he wins. If Almeida just plays it close to the chest, takes him down, grinds him out, beats him up on the ground, he'll probably submit him.
I think you're right in that analysis, and I think that that will be the game plan for Almeida, get him on the ground. He's got terrific ground game on the mat. But like you say, I mean, Rosenstrike moves really well for a big guy, and he's huge. I mean, he just I know that they're the same weight, it's the same weight class, but he just looks gigantic. And I love watching some of these heavyweight fights because a lot of them are just, man, these are just some huge dudes. So getting him on the ground is going to take a lot of energy. And then once he's on the ground, you've got to think, okay, well, now you've got to get to work and try to get him to submit. But you know, Almeida gets people to submit all the time. He's got terrific ground game. He gets KOs too. You got to stay away from Rosenstrike's hands. His striking ability is really incredible. Nate, from a betting perspective, do you see anything you like here? I mean, minus 500 for Almeida. That's like for a main event. Oh my God.
You really got to dig on this to find some betting value, right? Because Jailton Almeida is minus 500, which is just crazy for a main event fight. And then you look, okay, you figure these guys probably are going to finish early. Jailton Almeida particularly has, you know, finished people pretty quickly in his career. You know, all of his fights have either ended in the first or second round. This feels like probably a similar thing, but even the under 1.5 rounds is juiced up to minus 210, so I don't love that either. So then I had to go even deeper, and then I started looking at round props, and then I'm like, all right, well, maybe to just end in the first round, and that actually provides some value. Almeida's minus 135 to just finish this in the first round. If you want to back it up with Rosenstrike, he's plus 1,000. So, I mean, you could just bet both of them in round one and just, if somebody wins in round one, you make money. And that would probably be the way that I would lean on this because it just seems like a finish is probably happening sooner rather than later. Almeida doesn't waste a ton of time once he does get a guy down in submitting them. And it doesn't look like Rosenstrike has a great sort of defensive game plan for that, or he's never shown it really. So my inclination would be to just bet both guys round one finish and just sort of hope that the flash happens.
I'm with you on that. And if you go to GodzillaOnes.com and you click on the MMA tab, you'll see Trent Connor's piece on the prop bets for the main event. And he's got some interesting ones too. He's been on fire lately. He just hit the Bellator main event as well. So you want to go there and look at that. One of the things I like about Trent is he's not afraid to go really long here. So I like Rosenstrike here just because on principle, in a main event fight, anything can happen. And plus 400 is too much to give up. I mean, I don't care what the outcome is. If Rosenstrike gets submitted in the first round, fine. I understand that. But in a main event fight, I'm just not I'm not going to pass up the opportunity for a 4-1 odds on anyone because anything can happen when you get in the octagon, like Patrick is saying. Rosenstrike can he can connect on one of those strikes and boom, Almeida's down. It would be a crazy upset, but I've seen it happen before. It's one of the things I love about the UFC is it's like horse racing. Once the bell rings, you just don't know what's going to happen. You've trained, you've done your analysis, but when the bell rings, you just don't know how people are going to perform. It's one of the most interesting things about fighting in ways that like the NBA is not like that. You pretty much know how these guys are going to perform day in and day out, but the UFC is just so crazy. So I'm going Rosenstrike plus 400. I also love because, you know, if you like Rosenstrike, well, you got to think, okay, we've got to knock him out, right? Plus 475 for Rosenstrike to win by TKO. Plus 180 if you like Almeida to win by KO or TKO, which is also a possibility because I'm not really sure that this goes the distance. So like Nate's saying, maybe you take the first round stuff, maybe you take some of the longer juice there, but I don't recommend anyone take Almeida minus 500. It's just like, if you like to gamble, that's just not even gambling. It's like not fun.
Yeah, I mean, if you really like Almeida, just take him in round 1 and 2, minus 135 and plus 500. You can still lock up profits with either of those outcomes, given those lines. So just do that.
Well, we'll see. It should be fun. Like we say, UFC fight nights come on the heels of a big pay-per-view. So the card could be a little inconsistent, but I'm really, really interested in the Smith-Walker fight. And now Patrick has me hooked on the Brown-Court McGee fight, which is really, really interesting, especially with that story. I mean, you got to love some of these guys. Just their redemption stories are just really, really interesting. Fighters just have such an interesting life that they live, such an interesting thing to choose to do. So
it's a drastic understatement, Jack.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you just got to be wired so differently. You know, I'm not wired that way to be like, oh, let me go get in the ring and fight someone. Most fights I've been in have not been planned.
Wait a minute. Wait. You spent 3 years as a bouncer in one of the toughest bars in Reno, in that part of Nevada. So, and you threw a lot of kids, I guess a lot of big guys out of that bar. You got your master's degree by being a bouncer in a very tough bar. So I'm not sure that jives there, dude.
Yeah, well, I just because I worked as a bouncer doesn't mean I was effective. Nate can.
Well, you were there 3 years.
And tough may be overstating it. Active might be a better way to put the bouncing situation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I was definitely available at all times if needed. But I mean, I'll tell you a quick story. This one guy at that bar, they served drinks in glass, so you weren't getting like paper cups or whatever. And so I was working an event in the afternoon, and it's called a wine walk. And basically what happens is in Reno, everybody goes to these different bars and gets wine, and it goes very quickly and everybody falls apart. And then at the bar we worked at, it had pretty good food, so people would come at like 5:00. And I was bouncing. I was working the door one day, and it was like 6:30, 7:00. I mean, everybody's just wasted. And you're just trying to kind of keep the peace before more people come in. I believe Nate was working behind the bar at this time, but he might not remember this because it was a one-on-one interaction. And this guy, was like 6'7", and he was hammered. And he's stumbling out of the bar with a glass of like a drink, like a cocktail, a glass. And you can't just take drinks onto the street. It's not New Orleans. So and people think it is because I think the Vegas thing, whatever. Anyway, so I told the guy very politely because he was gigantic. I was like, hey man, you can't take that outside. And he looked at me and he threw it towards the trash can, and it did not, he missed, and glass went everywhere. I mean, everywhere. And this is the entrance to the bar, right? And he just looks at me and pauses and goes, oops, and then walks out. And I got the broom. So, you know, I don't know how effective I was at intimidating a lot of people at that bar. But I did collect a paycheck for many years. So, you know, there's
Jack, if you want to have a segment on the show when we've got some time, I've got more freaking doorman stories than anybody would ever believe when I used to work doors in South Beach for about 12 years. I got some really entertaining stuff.
When we get to July and all we got is baseball and we run out of things to talk about because it's just Dad going over and over, I'm 10-0. We'll work in some segments where we trade doorman stories, because I have a lot where I lost so many fights just all the time. So we can definitely do that. Before we move on to our next segment, Dad, can you please tell us a little bit about Birch Gold?
Well, listen, first of all, the show wouldn't be possible without our sponsors who believe in us, believe in what we're doing, and believe in our audience. And Birch Gold is one of those. And the thing is, you don't know what's going to happen in today's economy. I mean, you got banks failing. You just don't know. And my son Jack knows what our family went through in the 2008 crash. We lost everything. We couldn't pay his school. He had to borrow money to stay there. His daughter dropped out. We ended up homeless for 2 years. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen. So if you've got money in your retirement, 401k, IRA, pension plan like Anna and I have, it's not a lot, but you don't want to be caught in a massive disaster again. Best way to hedge is with precious metals, whether it's gold or silver. Now, right now, central banks all over the world are buying up gold. It is what it is, right? I'm just reporting the facts. I'm not a financial analyst, but I'm not stupid. So they're buying up gold all over the world. Why? Because people are concerned with what might happen in the economy. The best way to do your IRA, your 401k, or your pension plan is to put some of it in precious metals. I like gold and like silver. Either way, it's going to be there. It's not going down. I'm not a financial analyst, but talk to the people in your family that know. But the main thing is get the information. And all you have to do is text Godzilla, that's me, to 989898 Godzilla, to 989898. They're going to send you Birch Gold, a 20-page info kit. Read it over, look it over. If you decide to diversify some of your funds, it's a seamless thing. Their rates are reasonable. Their service is fantastic. Personally, I wouldn't do business with anybody else. And listen, I started buying gold at 1,600. It's over 2,000. Again, it's a hedge. So diversification is going to be the key, but get the information you need by texting Godzilla to 989898. Do it now on your phone. They're going to send you an info kit. You read it over like I did 3 times, and then you decide what's best for yourself and your family. And I want to be sure that I take care of my family. So look it over and decide what's best for you guys.
We want to always thank Birch Gold for partnering with us here at Godzilla Wins. Okay, what I want to talk about next here, and I'm hoping Sheriff Clark will join us because I know he has a lot to say about this. I'm sure he'll be on soon. But I'm glad Dan is here because Dan is one of our college basketball guys as well. So, Dan, if you have some thoughts on this, feel free to jump in.
Sure.
So, Bob Huggins this week, or maybe last week, I can't remember exactly the timeline, went on a radio show and used an offensive term to the LGBTQ community, I guess would be the way to put it there, referring to Xavier in that way. And I think he used the term multiple times. So West Virginia, twice. So West Virginia, I think, decided to kind of fine him, I guess, not fire and possibly suspend him and require him to do some sensitivity training, stuff like that. So I'll start with Nate here, then we'll kind of go around the horn. Anyone can kind of jump in. Nate, how should college basketball fans, which we're all big Bob Huggins fans here, I'm sure. I don't want to speak for Dan, but we all love what he has done on the court. How should college basketball fans be reacting to a story like this?
I mean, I think shock. I think that it's shocking that in the sort of cultural landscape that we exist in, that Bob Huggins is keeping his job. And I'm not necessarily saying, fire him just instantly. But the way that things have been going in college athletics, it certainly seems like a reasonable thing to have done. I mean, instead, the universities sort of went through a lot of hoops to keep Bob Huggins, and I'm not really sure why. And I'm not really sure this story's over either, given how much backlash there's been. But $1 million doesn't, it's $1 million that's being pulled out of his salary that's going to other programs at the university. So it's not like it's just, we're taking this money back and adding it to the president's salary or whatever. It's, it's just going into, they're just funneling into different departments at the university, which seems fine to me. The 3-game suspension means nothing. I mean, you could just look at this as just like, you're not going to be there for 3 games. So we're going to, not pay you the money that you would not make plus a little bit more. But yeah, you can't say that. There's another part of me that's just horrified that the radio host just let him go off and just said nothing. They did nothing to they were just yeah, nobody pushed back. Nobody was like, whoa, nobody did anything. They just kind of just cruised on right through. And I don't know if you're just in shock in that moment or if they were legitimately just thinking this is awesome radio, or if they just weren't paying attention. I don't know what was going on. But
Yeah,
Bob
Dad,
Huggins does this. He gets like hammered all the time, and he just does weird stuff with the media.
Right. Yeah, he does. This is not the first time Bob Huggins has been in trouble.
No.
Dad, from a radio personality, a radio host perspective, that's kind of an interesting perspective. Like, what goes through a radio host's mind when someone starts saying something like that on live air?
Cut them off.
Yeah.
I learned the hard way. The thing with radio, especially when you have a relationship and you have long form like I do, is you fall into a conversation. That's what makes it so effective. That's what makes the radio medium, as Patrick knows because he's on with me once a week, that's what makes the radio medium so different than TV or a podcast or something like that, which is edited, not live. Because A, it's live, and B, if it's long form and you're not doing a 5-minute hit like the politicians attempt to do, they can't do that on my show. You have a conversation, and the conversation gets comfortable, especially when you're just talking into a phone or you're in your car or something of that nature. It's very one-on-one. The medium is very different. And that's why a lot of this stuff happens on the radio, not on TV. TV got cameras there. Everything is more aware. Radio is just mano to mano, right? I'm talking to you on the radio, and then somebody's in the car or they're at home or they've got the app on and they're listening to me. That's it. There's no big picture there. So as a host, you got to be very astute. I got axed from CNN, and I had a great relationship there. I got axed from them one time because I had a guy on that was on with me every week. Colonel Mike, on with me, former CIA guy, great guest. He was on with me every single week. And he's on one day, and I'm multitasking. I got, Get Her Live or whatever I was doing there, the chat going, text. And he goes off on some crazy rant about, what should happen if Trump doesn't win or something. I don't remember. Or Hillary Clinton. But he put some things in there he shouldn't have. And I failed to cut him off. I didn't elaborate on him. I didn't endorse it. I just let him go. And I was like half paying attention because he does a lot of rants. And so they nailed me on it. Not what I said. I didn't say anything. It's the fact that I let him go and didn't challenge him or cut him off. So Cunningham, after the first one, right, where he said the Catholic whatever, throwing the rubber penises on the court, right there as a host, especially Cunningham's been around for years, right? Yeah, it was a statement he shouldn't have made. But right there, you got a friend on, you got to know that thing's going off the rails. And you've got to say, hey, Bob, I got to cut to a break. I'll be right back. Boom, done. If he did it one time, it probably wouldn't have been as bad. The fact that Cunningham let him go, laughed with him, and then he said it again. Now, having said that, that's kind of what went down. So Cunningham takes part of the blame here for not ending the thing. I mean, I have people now that call in, and the moment, and Al's there, or Mike, who's ever doing this show now, they know the moment something like that starts, they're gone. And we should just go on to something else because you don't want to get involved in it, right? But if you look at the Huggins situation, the guy's 69 years old, okay? He said a couple stupid things. I mean, they were stupid, but he was trying to be funny, I guess. I mean, the whole thing is icky to me. And do I think he should have been fired? Absolutely not. I think you reprimand him, you suspend him. The guy's 69 years old. He's been saying that kind of stuff forever. But you know what? He's a great basketball coach. The fans love him. The alumni loves him. The players love the guy. And so I don't believe in capital punishment because you make, one dumb statement.
It is difficult on live radio. We all know that. We're on live radio right now. I'm going to end with Sheriff Clark, who just joined us. Thanks for being here, Sheriff Clark. We'll go with Dan next. Dan, I'm not going to ask you a loaded question, but just what's your overall sort of take on this?
I mean, my take is It's probably a little lighter of a punishment than it should be. I think I probably would have suspended him for around 6 games because West Virginia, in advance what their schedule is going to be because West Virginia traditionally releases their schedule before anyone else does. So their first 3 games are against Missouri State, Monmouth, and I think Jacksonville State. So not exactly much of a punishment there. The week after, they've got a tournament in Fort Myers where they're going to be playing the likes of Virginia or Southern Methodist. And West Virginia, quite frankly, needs Bob Huggins on the bench against Tony Bennett. So I think that would be an appropriate punishment there to cost the Mountaineers a game where Bob Huggins would actually be needed. That would be a punishment with some teeth to it, but wouldn't cripple the Mountaineers for the entire season.
Yeah, and Dan, that went into their decision making. They looked at the schedule.
Of course. But yeah, I would think appropriate would be probably 5 to 6 games, make him miss at least one marquee game, and allow him to come back after he's shown that he's served the punishment and is contrite. And his apology did seem contrite, at least, which is why I'm totally fine with him keeping his job after serving an appropriate punishment.
Sheriff Clark, I'll ask you a loaded question. Should Bob Huggins be fired?
Absolutely not. And I think that we are entering a very dark place in this country right now. When we start talking about taking away a person's livelihood for something they said, and the inappropriateness of it is not what I'm going to defend. Bob Huggins has to defend that crap, for heaven's sakes. But, to stand up here, and don't forget, West Virginia is a government school. It's a state school. So the First Amendment does apply here. All right.
But there are hate speech restrictions on First Amendment.
Well, let me finish. The school can have a personal conduct thing written into his contract. The school obviously has the right to do that sort of thing, to discipline him, but they have to follow due process and have to give him due process. So the fact that they didn't fire him, whatever the reason is, I think it is because Bob Huggins is West Virginia basketball and nothing more. These other things we were mentioned this morning about scheduling, all that, okay, fine. But the fact is they would still have to afford him due process. And usually the due process standard, because I had to deal with it as a sheriff when I imposed discipline on my deputies or even any of my employees, there's a standard, and it's called progressive punishment, where, if you think this can be done with some retraining or whatever, that's fine, then you do that. And depends upon the offense, which is why I say just for something that somebody said, for heaven's sakes, this stuff is wearing me out. People say stupid stuff all the time, and I don't defend stupid stuff, but I'm certainly not going to take a person's livelihood away for something that they said. Now, if it's something that they did, that's different. For instance, if Bob Huggins sexually assaulted some co-ed, I'm not talking progressive punishment there. That's a crime, for heaven's sakes. And so we're almost kind of treating this as if he committed a crime. That's why I said we're entering a very dark place in America.
I agree with you, Sheriff, 100%. I mean, I saw the comments, I'm not, whatever. Okay, the guy's 69 years old. He's on the radio with a friend of his. They were talking about when Xavier was throwing, you got to put it in context. Xavier was throwing rubber penises out on the court. That pissed him off. And so, he had a slur. That same slur 30 years ago, nobody thought anything of it. The guy's 69 years old. Even the talk about firing over this got to be the most asinine thing that I've ever heard. Okay, he's suspended for 3 games. Hey, Bob,
I don't think
knock it off. Why is that? But you got to fire the guy because he went on the radio and he said, and I mean, okay, he shouldn't have said the comment, but we got to get out of this capital punishment because you make a mistake. And what he said was bad, but it's not like, oh my God, it's the end of the world, right? You slap him on the wrist. I thought 3 game suspension's fine. Go have a beer, whatever, Bob. And just, you call him in the office. Hey, knock it off. It's 2023, whatever it is, dude. You embarrass a university. You can't say that, right? Yeah, say it again. Then I gotta make a move here. You got to force my hand. But
Yeah.
he said it. I mean, the fact that we're talking about here firing the guy, I mean, it's insane. The guy made a mistake on the radio. I mean, it's kind of the whole. You know what? I don't want to get into this with you guys, but it's kind of the whole culture, like Sheriff said. Snowflake and everything else.
Yeah.
Somebody offends somebody, and now you're going to destroy their livelihood. Give me a break.
Okay, so a couple things I think to keep in mind that are really important in this discussion. One, being old doesn't excuse people from bad behavior. I want to commend my father, who has, in his many years on this earth, changed his perspective and showed the ability to learn in lots of different ways. Dad, so I understand the guy's old, a different time, whatever, like people say. But I've seen you change a lot in be open to learning new things. I'm sure Sheriff Clark would say the same thing, as well as Patrick. Patrick, I'll get to you in a minute because I got one more point on the free speech issue. I went to a university, Ole Miss, which has a very, very complicated relationship with race and civil rights. And there are, free speech areas at Ole Miss where you can practice your First Amendment right, and you can practice your ability to protest. I have seen the Klan protest on the campus in a free speech zone at the university in, I think it was like 2010 or something. So that is a right in which a land grant institution, which is what West Virginia is, that's what Sheriff Clark was mentioning earlier, that is a right, but it doesn't protect you from just going out in the world. He's also like a public employee who is held to different standards. However, I agree with Sheriff Clark. There's a lot of sort of progressive things that you can do, and it's not an action, and it comes with a certain level of punishment. Maybe the punishment didn't have enough teeth, but even still, there is a progression to these types of things, and hopefully he can learn from this mistake moving forward, regardless how old he is. Go ahead, Patrick.
People are going to say what people say. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I think people need to back off and just relax a little bit. But if you're going to do it, you enforce it that way against everybody. Because there's certain people in this country, especially people like cardboard cutouts in Washington right now, who have said vile, racist stuff about people. And that's just him. And it's okay. So you either hammer both sides equally, or you don't say a word about it.
I agree with that 100% because it's like it's selective punishment to the people that are you guys brought this up. It's selective punishment for people that are on the right. It's simple because if you're on the left, you can say whatever you want. You can be racial. You can do this. You can insult. You can be AOC. You can do whatever you want, and nothing happens. You're on the right. You say one wrong thing. Everybody wants you fired and run out of town. And
I came in late on this. Did we talk about the Georgia player?
No, go ahead. Well, I mean, it's up to.
Well, no,
I'm sorry, it's up to Jack.
Yeah,
it's up to Jack.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Jack.
I don't. The reason I don't want to get into this more is I don't want this segment to sort of derail us from some of the other things that we have planned here. Our next segment is we're talking some NHL picks, and I specifically asked Dan to come on to talk about that. So I don't want to derail the conversation too much. Sheriff Clark, if you would like to make the point very succinctly, that's fine. Then I'd like to move on.
No, that's fine. It's just the different standards for different people and different demographics is what I think, John, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I think that's what he was talking about here.
Yes.
And that rubs me the wrong way because that Georgia player, something more should have happened to him. And I'm not saying kick him off the team, but he just gets away with an apology. But Huggins doesn't. And so it isn't the people involved. It's the standards we're using to apply to different people. And it's not right.
I agree.
Okay, so one of the things that is right is targettrading.co. Dad,
That's right.
Why don't you, Dad and Patrick,
That's a great segment. You've got raw talent as a talk show host. That's
Absolutely.
Patrick. That's going to be one of the best segues I've ever heard out of something uncomfortable.
He is his father's son.
I mean, that's really good, dude. I'm impressed.
I've had a lot of practice gently segueing you from uncomfortable topics to something a little bit more comfortable for me to discuss. So why don't we talk about targettrading.co, then we'll get to the NHL.
You know, the how the weather segue only works so many times, Jack. You know. Let's see this week.
You guys are kicking ass, man. Oh, can I say that on the radio? You guys are kicking ass. Am I going to get fired now?
It's up to Jack.
Yeah, for real. I wield all power in the 90 minutes that we're on the air here. So tell us about targettrading.co, please.
Let's see. Last week we were 71 wins, 17 losses, 4 break even. The only people in the business that call your entry levels out for you the day before, Jack, we're the only ones that do it. You know what's coming. You know what to expect. You want to change your future. You want to become your own boss. You want to tell the man to just drop dead, live your life the way you want to. At least give it a shot. See if it's for you. Learn how to trade, because I can tell you one thing. In the coming next couple of years, you're going to need a second form of income. And it may be your first form of income, because things don't look too good.
So look, go to targettrading.co, targettrading.co. Check this out. Patrick's got about, what do we have now from our listeners, Patrick? About 100 people in it?
Jeez, I don't even know anymore. All I know is the vast majority of people going live, meaning starting from zero on Sim, learning the method and going to live real money, the vast majority of them are John Frederick's listeners.
And we got about 100 people in there. I have yet to have anybody make a complaint. Look, if we believe in something and promote it and people are not happy with it, they text me. Trust me. It's too expensive, or it's not good, or it didn't work for me, or I didn't get the right service or something. We've never gotten that with Patrick. In fact, I did tell you this story. This happened to me at 2 baseball tournaments, one in Atlanta and one in Fort Myers, where somebody comes up to me that I don't know, a listener, heard me talking to somebody, came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm Mary, I'm Sue, and I heard you over there. I know your son plays. I wanted to come and meet you. Thanks for getting me involved with targettrading.co. I'm having a tremendous experience." So 2 people sought me out to tell me that. We're to targettrading.co. It's a tough environment. You're going to have to do a lot of hard work, but those that do it and you follow Patrick's thing, you're going to be successful. And like me with baseball, he gives his results every single week. No one else in the business does that. It's real or it's not. He's transparent. Give it a shot. And if you mention Godzilla or me, John Fredericks, you get 15% off tuition. Targettrading.co. Check it out.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Patrick, for always partnering with us. Dan, so we talked a little bit earlier about giving out some NHL picks. I'll tell you, a couple weeks ago, the first time we did the NHL, I know if for our listeners, you had emailed me, we were going to do some baseball, and you're like, can we work in some hockey? I said, yes, of course. When you did that segment, my father called me after the show and was like, we got to keep doing the NHL. Dan's analysis is so spot on. So that's why one of the reasons we've been asking you to come back. But we want to start here a little bit with some of these younger players who I think you've been able to cash in on a little bit in some of the betting. Then we can get to your playoff picks as well. But you got the floor.
Yeah. So it's not as much younger guys as it is third line guys who tend to step up in these playoff games. Like you look at Carolina and Jesper Fast, and he's been outstanding this postseason. He scored the game-winning goal in Game 5 to put the Hurricanes through. And these are the type of guys who don't get a lot of attention, and that leads to them getting some really good lines on the sports books because they've got a history of performing in the playoffs. And when you get into these postseason series, these teams know each other so well that it's often a lesser-known guy who steps up with the key assist or the key goal that turns the game around. And the more that these guys see each other, the more confidence they build in this matchup. So for a third liner like a Jesper Fast, some guys in the past have been, I remember once during the Stanley Cup Finals, my brother is a huge Capitals fan. Capitals are playing the Golden Knights in Game 5, and I'm texting him, this feels like a situation where Lars Eller or somebody like that is going to score on the winning goal and Washington's going to clinch the series. 3 minutes later, Lars Eller scores. It's like these are the type of guys who fly under the radar because everyone's going to be focused on the Dreisaitl's, the McDavids, the really huge names. And don't get me wrong, Draisaitl is an amazing player and he's been absolute money through the postseason. But on the other end of the spectrum, you look at a guy like John Tavares, who during the regular season, outstanding player, put up huge numbers. This past series against the Panthers, he scored 1 point in 5 games for the Maple Leafs, and Toronto is on the golf course yet again. The curse of the Senators lives. So, yeah, when you're making these hockey prop plays, look at these guys who are lesser known, don't really do a lot in the regular season, but they have a history of getting it done. And you see it in the NBA a little bit too. Robert Horry made a career out of being that kind of player.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple guys like that in the NBA, Derek Fisher as well.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get to some of these games going on this weekend. Stars and Kraken, we talked about that last week a little bit. We said the Kraken probably steal one more. Still feels like Dallas' series. And we've got the Knights and the Oilers as well. What are your thoughts on these two series as they kind of shake out? Both, so the Dallas leads 3-2, and then the Golden Knights in Vegas lead 3-2.
Yeah, so it seems like the Kraken are at the end of their rope here. And Dallas really took control of that fifth game. And when you're an underdog like Seattle has been, and you haven't been here before, because this is only a second-year franchise. Most of these guys were cast-offs from their original teams. They're just thrown together, and they've done a great job of coming together. But this isn't a team with playoff experience, and I think it's going to be really hard for them, even with the home ice advantage, which hasn't really meant that much this season. Road teams have been winning quite a bit in these playoffs. So I think Dallas finishes this off in 6. And Vegas, Edmonton, I feel like this one's going to go 7. Like, these two teams just keep going back and forth, dominating the game. And I think Edmonton comes out with a pretty strong response. And I think that's going to be a classic Game 7 matchup between these two teams if we are lucky enough to get it. I think Vegas is the better team and will eventually win this series. But I think Edmonton's going to have one last stand in them and force it to go back to Nevada.
Yeah, and I live in Raleigh, and I don't really follow hockey, but it's the Hurricanes. It's like crazy hockey people here. I've never seen more enthusiasm. Do the Hurricanes have a shot to win this thing?
Oh, absolutely. The Hurricanes are probably, except for maybe the Golden Knights, I would say the Hurricanes are probably the favorite to win this thing. And especially when Boston went out, Carolina became the team to beat in the East, and Carolina has really just been waiting for Tampa Bay and to a lesser extent Boston, because the Bruins only came together this year. But they've really been waiting for Tampa Bay's window to close, because Carolina has been building this team for the past couple of seasons, and they've really got this thing where it needs to be. They've got an excellent team from top to bottom, and they really have a great shot to win the Cup.
So, Nate, what's Carolina right now to win the whole thing?
Win the whole thing?
Look that up, yeah.
And look,
DraftKings got him.
Guys, yeah.
As you're looking that up, Nate, tell us a little bit about how's the Golden Knights fever out there in Nevada?
The Golden Knights fever the Northern Nevada people aren't really Golden Knights fans, so there is no real fever. I have had nobody ask me to turn on a game at the bar that I work at. This is like the heat check in South Florida. Like, nobody here. It's all Sharks. It's all like long-suffering Sharks fans up in Reno. So nothing to be happy about. They just resent Vegas more than ever. The divide is growing larger between North and South here in Nevada.
That actually became a fun rivalry for a bit until the Sharks fell apart.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of Oakland love out there in Reno, and they're just fuming because, or I guess Bay Area love. You put San Jose in there because, I mean, the A's are going to leave as well. It's just like Vegas getting everything, while the Bay Area is stuck with nothing. But That's
To
just how sports.
to answer that question, the Hurricanes are plus 210 to win the cup now.
I think that
Yeah.
might be a good little wager, right? Plus
Yeah.
210.
Yeah.
I mean, they dumped all over the Devils. I mean, that series was not even close.
Yeah.
But you never know. I mean, Panthers are.
And that was a great example of a talented team that's been there before in Carolina against a talented team that has not yet been there. Like, that series reminded me a lot of, reaching way back into the past now because it's what I have to do for my Senators, 2007, when Ottawa made its only Stanley Cup appearance. The first round, we bumped out the Penguins in 5 games. It wasn't a close series. The next 2 years, the Penguins won the East as Crosby and Malkin learned how to win and became that dominant team. So New Jersey's coming, but right now Carolina is just much more experienced.
Dan,
So
you're just about as
So the Penguins next season, I mean, I know the Pittsburgh people go crazy about the Pens. Just 2 seconds, what happened to them? Are they going to be back next season with a decent team?
I mean, it's tough to say because, I mean, their stars are at the end of their window pretty much. I mean, Crosby's now 35. Malkin, I think, is right up there. So it's really tough for a team like Pittsburgh because it's kind of like what Detroit was for a few years. When you have those older guys, you don't want to close the window quite yet because of what those guys have done for the franchise.
Right.
But I think Pittsburgh's ceiling is probably a wild card spot on one of those 7-8 seeds where they're fighting to get in. Maybe they steal a series, but that's probably as far as they can go.
Thanks, Dan.
Yep.
So, Dan, do you have some picks for us?
Well, I mean, I think we already went through those, didn't we? The Oilers to beat the Golden Knights in Game 6 and the Stars to take down the Kraken.
Yeah.
So tonight the Stars are minus 165.
Mm-hmm.
Would you lay that?
Yeah, I think I would.
On the road?
I mean, the way these games have been going, I don't think I'd touch the puck line here. I think especially in an elimination game, Seattle is going to be strong enough to at least keep the game close. But I think I'd play it a little safer tonight and take the Stars on the money line.
Okay, sounds like it's going to be an interesting weekend. I've been watching a little bit of hockey lately. Playoff hockey is a lot of fun. Those environments are live.
I mean, there's nothing like a playoff Game 7 in hockey.
Yeah, for real. So, Dad, tell us about Ignite 45 before we move on.
Well, Ignacio Falco, who's a big friend of ours, if you own a small business right now, any business, right, it doesn't really matter. You got to get in the social media game, right? You got to get a website. You got to be on SEO. You got to come up on the searches. If you're selling anything online, you got to have a strategy for that. And the thing that I love about Ignacio is he started a business called Ignite 45. Go to ignite45.com. He's one of our founding sponsors. And he started a business specifically to help small businesses online that don't have a big budget, that need a viable presence on digital and social media. So if you're a plumber, if you're a contractor, if you do heating and air, if you do any things of that nature, if you own a maid service, right? Any of these types of businesses, you're a single proprietor, but you own a business and you have to get a social media and a digital presence. Go to ignite45.com, ignite45.com. And here's what Ignacio will do. He'll do an assessment. He'll go through your business and he'll say, hey, here's where you are based on what you said your objectives are. Here's what is lacking and here's what I can do. And then even if you don't go forward with him, you get an analysis for free. And if you do, you mentioned Godzilla, you get $100 off. Do your business a favor. Do yourself a favor. Go to ignite45.com, check it out, ask him for information, do your analysis, and then decide if that's the right thing for you. And if you like our show and you own a business, you give it a shot because at least he'll do an evaluation. And, he did ours and I was like blown away by it. So the guy's really good at what he does. Ignite45.com.
Okay, we want to thank Ignacio at Ignite 45 and for partnering with us. So, Sheriff Clark, we're going to skip the college baseball stuff because we got to get to the NBA. I know you've been locked in here. How How excited are you for Sunday, Game 7, Celtics Sixers? I mean, this is like a huge game.
Nervous. But before I say anything more about my Celtics, let me preface what I want to say with this. I'm not going to tolerate any more of the disrespect that you guys are throwing on the Boston Celtics. For heaven's sake. This is a flagship franchise in the NBA. Some of the greats, the Bill Russells, the John Havliceks, the K.C. Jones, go through the Larry Birds. I could go on and on. I'm just kidding about the lack of respect because it's kind of
You
like
disrespect them more than anybody. You'll be blowing us up in the text thread. Fire.
Yeah, but I
Fire
get to,
Missoula, trade
but
Tatum.
I get to because it's like, when I was a little kid, I would say, hey, I could pick on my little brother, but you can't. So it kind of that same philosophy. No, they are frustrating as hell. I couldn't believe that game the other night for 3.5 quarters. A lot of F-bombs were flying through the family room at the Clark household at the play. The lack of effort. Tatum was walking around like he was in a fog, for heaven's sakes. He couldn't have thrown the ball in the ocean if he was standing in a boat. And then he comes alive in the last 5 minutes to save the day. He went into his phone booth and came out Superman and saved the day. But that's the frustration I have with this team. They're highly talented, but they don't always play that way. I would not be shocked if Philadelphia won on Sunday. I just would not be shocked. I don't know what to expect from this Boston Celtics team right now.
Yeah. I mean, the Sixers and the Celtics feels like the series to punch their ticket to the East, but you never know. I mean, the Heat they just keep surprising everybody, and that will be sort of an interesting matchup, Celtics-Heat. I just feel like if the Celtics can get past the Sixers in Game 7, it is at home, that they probably take care of the Heat in 5 or 6 pretty easily. I worry about Tatum in a Game 7. I don't worry about Brown as much. I think we talked about that a little bit. Other than the kind of turnovers, he does some dumb stuff every once in a while. But, man, I mean, Tatum turned it on. It was like 19 points in the fourth quarter in Game 6. He hit 3 threes in a row. He had like 11 of the 13 points at one point in that quarter. Totally, just took over the game and dominated the fourth quarter, sent it back to Boston. Sheriff Clark, are you worried that Tatum's just going to be another no-show? He's done this in big spots before.
Yeah, I think he gets more recognition than he should in terms of being an elite basketball player. I don't know that he's elite. He's a very good, he might even be great, but I don't know if he's elite. He doesn't come up in these big spots. Although last year in Game 7 against the Heat, he had 47 points. So I'm expecting him to come out a little better. I'm not expecting 47 points. They don't need 47 points from Tatum tomorrow. What they need is a big game from Jaylen Brown. That's the guy that I think has to come up big. You need some support from some of the other guys, White, Williams. It's got to be a team effort, but you can't get down early. And that's what ticks me off about this club. They come out in Game 5, and they just, they're sleepwalking. And next thing you know, they're down by 15 points, and the whole game is based on them coming from behind. I think it was Game 4 and Game 5 and back in Boston. So I don't want to see, and we saw it last night where the Lakers got up 22-7 in the first quarter. The game's over at that point. Now, teams can come back, but you spend all your energy just trying to get back in the game. So if they don't come out with a sense of urgency and with energy and get that crowd in the game, you know what? They fool around. They could lose this game tomorrow.
Well, I would never lay 6.5. I'm going to bet Philadelphia tomorrow. I would never lay 6.5 in this game. What are the interesting two things? Okay, why I don't like the Celtics, and I don't mean like as a team. I don't like them tomorrow in this game. They lack a killer instinct.
Yep.
There's something about this team. They just don't nail you. They don't step on your throat. And in basketball, you got to have that. You got to have that killer instinct. They just don't have it. They kind of lollygag around. If you looked at the Atlanta series, I mean, they never really put the Hawks away, right? The Hawks were in every single game. They had big leads. The Hawks would come back, and so they don't have a killer instinct. But I tell you what's going to be fascinating tomorrow, right? Harden is a disaster in big games, right? I was a Rockets fan forever. Guy drove us nuts. Every big game, he craps the bed, and then he goes out at a club and gets drunk, right? Every time. Craps the bed every time. Tatum craps the bed in big games. One of these guys has got to step up tomorrow. So I think part of the intrigue is it going to be Harden? Is it going to be Tatum? But 6.5 against a Philadelphia team that, look, they're a scrappy bunch. I mean, they're scrappy. I think the Sixers are going to win the whole game. I'm going to take the 6.5.
I don't know why you wouldn't just take the money line if you're going to win the whole game.
I never do that. I never take the money line with an underdog because then you get beat at the buzzer and you're paying money. No, you got 6.5. Win the bet.
Take an alt spread.
What?
Well, I take the underdog odds when you can play the favorite odds.
I never bet the money line. If I
take an alt spread, take the Sixers plus 3.5. You can't lose to a buzzer beater.
No, I don't do that either. I'm going to take the 6.5.
Yeah, look, Dan.
This is why I'm the value guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, Dad, he's old school. Like he's used to being in at a phone booth in New Jersey, and some guy being like,
Fair.
The line is 6 or 7. Take it or leave it, bud. So
Fair.
Not a lot of alt spreads in the phone booth in Newark. So you just don't get that kind of value with Rocco. So Nate,
Rocco.
You're the biggest Lakers fan in history with your 6-1 ticket for them to win the whole thing.
20-1.
20-1. Oh man, tell us why the Lakers can get this done.
They looked great against the Warriors, and I get I'm reticent to say I think they can get it done. This is pure new homerism for me. I've never been a Lakers fan up until February, but they looked great against the Warriors. I mean, but the Warriors look terrible. And I don't know. I mean, Jack could probably speak to this too, because I'm sure you watched this series. Were the Lakers that good, or were the Warriors just bad?
No, I think the Lakers have been good ever since they beat Memphis. I mean, the thing with the Lakers is they're not a 6 seed if Anthony Davis can stay on the floor and not be carted off in a wheelchair when he gets woozy or whatever. And he can dominate a game, an entire series. We know LeBron James can perform well. Ever since the Rui Hachimura trade, the Lakers have just been a really good basketball team. James Tillman is one of the writers at Godzilla Wins. He's been writing about this since March. Don't count out the Lakers. The Lakers are playing really well. They're trending upward. All they do is win, and I think that he's right. I think that the Warriors were probably a better matchup for them, given their age and some of the problems they've been having with some of the younger stars right now than the Kings would have been. Which is a little bit of a younger team. But they got past Memphis. They looked good in that series. They looked good against the Warriors. And now we have to wait to see if they can beat the Nuggets. And the problem with the Nuggets is everybody underestimates them. But Nikola Jokic is the best player in the league for a reason. And it seems like this year he's determined to kind of have that Giannis season, like from a couple years ago, where Giannis, the questions were, well, can Giannis actually win? Does he have the role players around him? Blah, blah, blah. And he took over the playoffs. And he won a championship for Milwaukee. And I don't know if LA has enough for Denver, especially if AD can't be I don't know if AD's up to the task of defending someone like Jokic who can stretch the floor like that. And the minute and also get physical. And the minute, AD gets physical, he's just like a rag doll. We've seen that so many different times. I do think that the Lakers have the ability to continue this incredible run. But I also think that the Warriors, that was a really good matchup for them coming off a great Grizzlies series. But they're trending in the right direction. There's no reason not to be optimistic if you're an LA fan.
Well,
yeah, I'm definitely not hedging that bet.
That's true. Couple observations here on the Lakers. The Warriors were running on fumes. Their championship run was coming to an end. It happens to all great teams, all dynasties. It comes to an end. You could see it. They didn't come out with any energy the last 2 games. They were lucky to beat the Kings. I mean, it took them 7 games to beat the Kings, who were inexperienced, and it took a 55-point effort by Curry in Game 7 just to get by them. They limped into the Lakers series, lost Game 1. When you lose Game 1 at home, you're digging yourself a hole early on, and I don't think they ever crawled out of it. As for Denver, it's put up or shut up time. I'm tired of hearing about how good the Denver Nuggets are, and I believe they are, but that's why I said it's put up or shut up time. They have arguably, I think, the best player in the game right now, pound for pound.
Oh, yeah.
In Jokic. And, he's back-to-back MVP. Denver has had great teams the last couple seasons record-wise, but they fizzle in the playoffs. So now they're in the Western Conference Finals. It's put up or shut up, because if they don't win this series against the Lakers and get to the finals, I don't want to hear about Denver anymore.
Well,
Hey,
I got to
Denver-
hand. Let me just say this: I got to hand it to Sheriff Clark, because he said on the show 3 weeks ago, when the guy in Memphis was dissing LeBron James, he said, "You know what? You poke the bear, you're going to wake him up," and Clark nailed that. So, but I agree with that analysis, Sheriff Clark. Either Denver wins this next series or shut up, right? I mean, we're kind of sick of how great they are, and then they don't close the deal. Hey, I got my Beard Vet coffee. Coffee's for closers. No coffee.
Okay. I mean, in defense of Denver, I don't know what you guys are talking about, because they don't sit around talking about how they're the greatest team ever. They have historically built nothing around Jokic. Jokic carries that team throughout the regular season, and you need more in the playoffs in order to win. And that's been the issue with Denver forever. That it's just a testament, like Sheriff Clark's saying, to how good Nikola Jokic is. Now, that said, they have a better team this year, and it's why they're winning. Jamal Murray is a good complement for Jokic. And so I think that series is just going to be really interesting. And a Denver-Miami NBA championship would be probably infuriating to anyone who doesn't live in South Beach or in Colorado, but we'll see. Or
I think the best comparison there, actually, I think Denver is the NBA's version of Edmonton.
Yeah.
Jokic is kind of like McDavid, how his team hasn't been able to build around him until now. I mean, obviously, Draisaitl is much better than anyone that Denver surrounded Jokic with, but it's a pretty close comparison.
Or you could say it's the version of the Reds that never were able to build around Joey Votto, or the Angels that can't build around Ohtani or Trout.
Yeah,
right?
the Angels are a good comparison.
There's a lot of examples.
The difference is when was the last time the Angels got even above 500?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
I mean, not when they're playing the Astros. Hey, the problem with the Astros this season is we don't get to play 27 games against Oakland. That's hurt us.
It really has.
We haven't played them yet. It's like, when do we play Oakland?
Yeah, the balanced schedule has really changed things a lot.
The Yankees did that, The Yankees whined about the best. Yeah, all evil in baseball, the Yankees are behind it all. That's why I like
Tampa
Bay
the thing
tonight.
is, the team that it's actually helping the most is the Orioles.
That's true.
Because Baltimore had to play 57 games last year against New York, Toronto, Tampa, and then Boston's not that terrible either. So now the Orioles get to play more of these lesser teams, and they're showing that they're pretty good themselves.
So what is it? Tampa Bay is 30-10, right? I mean, they're off to this phenomenal start. They're a really good team, guys. We can talk about that in a minute. I mean, I don't impress easy. This team is relentless. And I don't know where they get these pitchers. It's what I call the Tampa Bay Sheriff pitching tree. I mean, they shake the tree and some guy falls out throwing 98 miles an hour. I've never seen where they get these guys. We don't get them. You just shake it, somebody else comes up. But,
that's not true. The Astros have developed incredible pitchers over the years. Here's what I want to do, though, before we kind of move on, because we have a special segment, Godzilla wins, Nate loses. We want to get to that at the very end of the show. But I've got Dad, who's on a hot streak, and we've got Dan, who's always live when it comes to picking MLB. So let's start with Dad. Let's just do very rapid fire. I'm talking a minute or two, Dad. Give out your picks like you would on TikTok, which is something that you do now. And then we'll get to Dan, and then we'll end the show with Nate.
Well, I got to put my Astros lucky glasses on for this one because I popped 10 in a row, baby. And here we are. I pick 4 or 5 or 6 games a day against the line. And here we are in the middle of May. I'm 77-50, and I'm up almost $1,000 betting at $100 units. I mean, that's very difficult to do. So I'm on a 10-game winning streak. But I tell you who I'm going with today. I'm going with the Orioles at home. Pittsburgh, it's a sinking ship, losing every day. They've lost 10 out of their last 11, 5 in a row now. I'm going with the Orioles. The Orioles are only 4 games out. As good as Tampa is, they're only 4 games out. This team is up and coming. I like the Orioles at home. I'm going with Tampa in game 2 at New York because of McCallahan. I mean, he's been unhittable, so I'm going to go with them. I like the Astros again in Chicago just for one reason. Chicago sucks. That's it. And then I'm going with the Dodgers in L.A. over Musgrove, who has pitched one good game. So I like the Dodgers at home over San Diego. Orioles, Tampa, Astros, Dodgers. Minute and a half.
A minute and a half. You bet the Orioles every day. It's kind of hilarious.
Real pro.
Yeah, Dan, go ahead, rapid fire. Give us.
Before I get to mine, I will push back slightly on Pittsburgh being a sinking ship. I think it's more the Pirates are playing a tougher schedule because most of those losses have come against the Rays and the Blue Jays. Like they're hitting the AL East meat of the schedule now that everybody plays everybody. I think they'll be okay when they start playing some lesser teams again. Now for my picks. Two of all mine, I'm thinking along the same lines as John. I'm going Astros team total over 4. The White Sox, their bullpen is horrendous, and Cease is getting lit up as it is. I mean, Chicago's past 5 opponents have all gotten to 4. 3 of them have gotten to 8 or more. Houston should put up a big number today. Going on that Dodgers-Padres game, last night I swept that game. Today I'm going Musgrove under 16.5 outs. He hasn't gone longer than 5 innings once all season. So I'm thinking that's going to happen again here.
Nice, love that.
Cubs Twins. Cubs plus 140. Wisniewski has looked very good in his past 4 starts. The Twins have lost Ryan's past 2 starts, so I think this is a really nice value play with Chicago. Nationals plus 1.5. Lucchesi hasn't pitched past 4 innings in his past 2 starts, and Washington has an outstanding ability to lose 1-run games. The Nationals have already blown 8 games where they've lost by a run, which wins on the run line. And then my final play is going to be Diamondbacks first 5 money line. You want to get in and get out with Gallen because Arizona's bullpen is just as terrible as the White Sox. So Musgrove under 16.5, Cubs plus 140, Nationals plus 1.5, Astros team total over 4, Diamondbacks first 5 money line.
All right, Dan's having a day on MLB. I love those. Love some of those props. That's awesome. Nate, we're gonna end with you here. One of our segments we're bringing back. Godzilla wins, Nate loses. This week, you lost it in a professional capacity. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your big L this week?
We got a tough Yelp review at the bar. So I work at a very busy bar in downtown Reno, just for a little context. And I'm usually the only person here, like with one other person. There's no support staff. So we took an L on Yelp. Do you want me to just read the full review, Jack?
Yeah, go ahead and just read your Yelp review.
All right. So 10 days ago, I was reviewed about a visit in September. So it's been a little time. The food was great. We had gut fries, pimento cheese, carrot hummus, burgers, wing salad, pretty much half the menu. Came in with a group of 10, which I know is annoying to do without notice. And we were very understanding that the food might take a while because of how big our group was. We all ordered drinks, so they ordered 10 drinks at once from me. And I asked for a club soda with salt rim and lime. I'm happy to be rung up as a soda or whatever. The brunette dude with mustaches and tattoos scoffed at me and said I'm not doing a salt rim for just a club soda, so I asked for a salted rim tequila soda, but easy on the tequila because I just really want a club soda. He rolled his eyes at me, poured me heavy on the tequila, and then got annoyed that I didn't order anything else. I grew up in a family of small business restaurants, so I know this is a reflection of the owners, but I do think maybe this bartender could fare better as a barback or a cook if he hates when business comes in wanting to spend money. That was our big L.
How long have you been a bartender?
15 years.
Maybe go back to bar backing. Nate.
Yeah, maybe learn some
So
things.
should Nate lose his job now because of that?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Here, look out. Nate sent me one of mine from over 5 years ago. I'll read it really quickly, then we'll get out of here. This is when I was a bartender at a very busy bar with no support staff. This could be a pretty great place. Unfortunately, I watched the bartender, Jack, literally offend at least 12 to 18 people that left because he was too obnoxious to even offer the lowest tier of customer service. He even went to the extent of making a patron walk to the bar to retrieve their food order from the waitress who was attempting to deliver their order.
Bonaire, Chester, and WJFV, Portsmouth.